James going to fill this entire set, but
Who is it?
some guy called Zach Temple. Apparently he's quite good on
I think they move us around every week now, don't they? Yeah, it's good.
We make new friends.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Where's James Hall?
He's not well.
I know. Yeah, I know.
He's not.
Still.
He's not making it tonight.
So 1 and 3, and the rest have been. Seven o'clock already.
Is it just the one shoot? Or two? Have you got
What's this?
Just the one sheet.
one shoot? Okay.
Just a big print.
Can you, look, there's one for me, there'll be one for you, and can you pass it out if they haven't got one? They got them.
Oh, that's it. Helps if I press the right button. Okay. Right, so good evening. I welcome everyone to full council meeting, including members, officers and any members of the public who may be attending remotely. Please be advised that the meeting will be live streamed and data collected during the recording of the meeting will be retained in accordance with the Council's data protection policy. The recording of the meeting may be added to the Council's website. The following staff are in attendance: Chief Executive, Director of Resources, Monitoring Officer, Head of Finance and Procurement, Democratic Services and Director of Regeneration and Neighbourhoods, who is online. Agenda item 1 is the emergency evacuation procedure. There is no scheduled test for a fire alarm, and if the alarm does sound, please leave the building quickly using the doors signed as fire escapes, and assemble in the car park at the front of the building and await instructions. If there is anyone in attendance that might require assistance in evacuating the building, can they please let themselves be known? Thank you. Item 2 is apologies for absence. I'll invite the Chief Executive to give apologies, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've received apologies from councillors Kavanagh, Hall, Henderson and Winkless.
Are there any others, members? No, thank you. No. Item 3, do members approve the minutes of the council meeting held on the 31st of January 2024, minute numbers 584 to 593 as correct record? Agreed. Thank you. Item 4 is declarations of interest. Do members have any interest to declare? Councillor Jace, mental blank.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to declare a non-disclosable pecuniary interest in Citizens Advice, where I am a director and trustee, and I'm also a parish councillor, as their precepts on the agenda.
Thank you. Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to declare that another registrable interest. I'm a trustee for Citizens Advice Swale. I'd also like confirmation whether you wish me to leave the room when any of the amendments with that subject are discussed.
No, that'll be fine. You can stay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Perkins. I'm going to have a bad night for names.
All right. Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'd also like to disclose a registerable interest in as a trustee of Citizens Advice and also as a town councillor in Faversham where the precept is being discussed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Councillor.
I would also like to declare an interest in Faversham Pools as I am the Swale Borough representative for that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Worcester.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to declare my interest in Minster Parish Council and Chair of Sheerness Town Council. I know it's a bit odd, but we were asked to declare those at P&R, so obviously the same thing's being discussed here, so I'd imagine that same needs to be done. And also Drainage Board, I guess, and a little bit of an interest in EKC.
Councillor Worcester, there's an automatic dispensation for the council's tax part and the precepts.
Just making sure, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? There was a lot of arms going up. Oh, yes, sorry. Councillor MacDonald.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. Yeah, just declare an interest if it's necessary for Sheerness Town Council.
No, you're all right.
It's all right. Pardon?
You're fine.
Sorry about that.
That's okay, but at least we all know it's clarified. Okay, that's everything, yeah? Okay. Okay, next item is my announcements. And then it's not a massive amount to say tonight, but I'll just let you know what I've been doing in the last 3 weeks. Paul and I joined the users of the Oasis Dementia Cafe when they were hosted by the Salvation Army in Sheerness for a Sunday lunch, and that was a really nice event, and one of the other councillors that was there as well. I also launched a Hair and Beauty Academy in Sittingbourne, which has been a female-led project, and it's been supported by Diversity House, so that was quite nice to see that up and running. And that's an independent lass who's worked from scratch to actually get that project off the ground. Both events were really enjoyable. We then attended the Forge Wartime Houses concluding event for their War on Waste project, which has run for the last year. They reached so many people and it was such an amazing project that council did actually help them with grant money. Sadly, though, I'm going to have to let you have the bad news that we're losing the Forge Wartime House. It is closing on April the 27th. It's so sad. It's a magical place. It's a gem of Swale, and it's lost to us now. But I do want to give them a massive thank you for all the support they gave to the Mayor's charity events they hosted for us. For mine at Christmas last year, and for Paul's when he was Mayor into 2022. Sittingbourne and Swale will miss you, Forge Wartime House. I am busy planning my next charity fundraisers and events. 2 of them will involve modes of transport, and I should just say the modes of transport: bikes, boats, trains and planes. Not tanks, no, I didn't actually add that one, but we will be putting information out. And yes, the famous handbags coming in it. There is going to be an event on handbags. So all that information, and I'm sure hopefully some of the girls will join us on that, all fundraising. Hopefully the information will be out as soon as possible with the dates and going out on dispatches, so keep your eye out, and I hope that some of you can support me on that one. So that's my announcements, thank you. Okay. Agenda item 6 is questions submitted by the public. There is one question submitted by the public. Lib from Swale Friends of the Earth, would you like to put your question, please? And I know you're online, thank you. Can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Our question is regarding the document Guidance for Complying with the Climate Change Planning Condition to Reduce Operational Carbon of new dwellings in Swale by 50%. What proportion of houses have been built since 2020 that comply with the guidelines, and how many have been checked to comply using BREEAM and home quality measuring?
Could I ask Councillor Gould to answer that question, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your question. Since the document referred to is guidance, while we encourage house builders to follow it, we do not actually monitor its use. The current guidance is under review and we will look to achieving net zero. All homes have to meet the building regulations on energy efficiency and carbon emissions, but the checking and enforcement of this is a matter for building control. We condition sustainability requirements such as EV charging points and water consumption, and these have to be discharged before occupancy. We encourage the use of renewable energy such as solar and air source heat pumps where appropriate. We also have just this week co-signed a letter to the Secretary of State, led by the Town and Country Planning Association, urging central government to allow local authorities to adopt planning policies which seek higher energy performance standards than those enshrined in the building regulations. She has just recently issued a ministerial statement which would take that right away from councils. There is also a consultation in progress on changes to the building regulations, and we will be responding to this and pushing for the highest standards to be introduced in as short a time as possible. The emerging local plan will also build on the current requirements and work towards net zero. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gould. Lib, do you have a supplementary question?
We do, actually. But we think it's been covered by Dr. Gould's answer to our first question. But the supplementary question was, what plans does the council have to upgrade the requirements for new builds to include solar panels and heat pumps? So I think that's been answered, unless you have anything to add.
Councillor Gould, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lib, for asking your question.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, we move on to item 8, leader's statement. I will ask the leader to read his statement, and I will ask the leaders of the opposition groups to respond in the usual way. Following that, I will invite other members to respond to the leader's statement. Members invited to speak will have 3 minutes. This item has an overall time limit of 30 minutes to ensure broad fairness. I will try to invite responses from members of administration and opposition groups in roughly equal numbers. This may mean that I deviate from the order in which members have indicated a wish to speak. Can I please remind members that the responses must be to the issues raised in the leader's statement. So please, I invite Councillor Gibson to give his verbal statement.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As this evening's meeting is potentially extensive in nature, I intend my leader's statement, unlike me, to be short and sweet, as there are far more important matters on the agenda. I will not dilate here on the key agenda item this evening, which of course is the budget, but I would just highlight that, to add insult to injury, the country is officially in recession. Plans are continuing to take shape to deliver more health, education, leisure and employment opportunities on Sheppey. East Kent Colleges Group unveiled draft plans for one of the 3 schemes that make up the Sheerness Revival project at 2 consultation days last week, which due to illness I was unfortunately unable to attend, but ward members and other colleagues did. At the event, plans for Sheppey College's extension were on display for viewing and to get comments and feedback from the public and local members before final plans are submitted to the council. Excuse me. The extension is, of course, part of the 20 million Sheerness Revival project, which we put together after successfully bidding for the Levelling Up funding. I'm indebted to my coalition colleague, Councillor Monique Bonney, and our officers for their drive, enthusiasm and hard work behind the scenes on this project. While speaking about Sheerness, it'd be remiss of me not to mention the not insignificant fire at Garrison Road, which lasted for an extended period of time and required residents to ensure that windows etc. remained closed for safety, and thankfully there were no injuries. Ward members reported how professional the fire crews on the ground had been in dealing with the incident, and I will feed that back to Kent Fire and Rescue Service in due course. The February Policy and Resources Committee meeting saw agreement for the Council's draft corporate equality scheme to go out to consultation. Excuse me. The scheme outlines how the Council will fulfil its moral, social and legal obligations to eliminate unlawful discrimination, harassment and victimisation, advance equality of opportunity and foster good relations. The 4 outlined objectives in the scheme are supporting integration and cohesion in our local communities, supporting our vulnerable residents, ensuring easy, clear and convenient access to our services, and promoting equality as a local employer. Apologies. These objectives are designed to underpin the Council's overall aims laid out in our new draft corporate plan, with the proposed vision being learning from the past, focusing on the future. The equality scheme sets out how we aim to make Swale a fairer place for everyone. Our borough is becoming an increasingly diverse place, and as a council, we need to tailor our services to meet those changing needs, whilst providing value for money for local residents. There is, of course, so much more that I could have said, and perhaps if I wasn't coughing, I might have said a bit more too. But as I stated at the outset, I'll keep it short and sweet, and accordingly, that concludes my leader's statement. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Could I ask the lady that asked the question online, could you turn your camera off, please? Oh. Oh. Miss Bodiam? Could you turn your camera off? Ah, right. Okay. Yes. Okay. Now I'd like to invite Councillor Bowen to give his response to the statement, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Similar to the leader, we've got a lot of business to get through tonight, so I'm going to be equally, if not even shorter, in my response. I agree with you about the work that's been done regarding the levelling up fund for the island. Just to put also on record, and as well we know, it wasn't only this council that helped secure that, it was also through the work of our MP, Gordon Henson, as well, that certainly helped there. So thanks where they should also be due. You mentioned about the incident on with the fire service. I note there was also another one today on the Eurolink in Merston, which again the duties of the fire service and what they put themselves out to do absolutely should be commended. But unfortunately, they're also in an area which, with the road closure, I think it's on Dolphin Road, one small closure completely screws up pretty much Sittingbourne and causes so many problems for people. Particularly, I know people were stuck or delayed getting here this evening. I find it's bizarre how one individual road, one closure, causes so much chaos. And I welcome also that the equality scheme for the council. The only comment I would make on that, and we should be absolutely dealing with and fighting against unlawful discrimination, but also where it is also people discriminated, it may also be not unlawfully, but any form of discrimination should be stopped and challenged within the council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. I'd like to invite Councillor Perkin now to give her response. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I agree with the leader that it's excellent to see the revival project moving so positively, and as the daughter of a firefighter, it's always nice to hear positive praise for what is an incredible service. Just on the equality scheme, it's really positive to see it come forward. I think there's some really good work around accessibility of our services, which is really great to see. However, it does state throughout the report that there is no information on sexual orientation or gender identity, but we know in 2021 that the census for the first time collected this information. I'd like to thank officers who are responding when I raised this week, as they've said that this will be updated for post-consultation draft, but I think it's really important that we are signalling that we've paid attention to that 2021 census data, because it is a groundbreaking thing to do. So that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Perkin. It's not actually on my script, but Councillor Lehman, did you want to comment? No. Okay, thank you. So then I'll open it to other members now to give a response if they like to. So who have I got? Councillor Worcester, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll make it very quick. I just wanted to add my thanks to Kent Fire and Rescue. A couple of points that were picked up during that fire was regarding their comms during the event. I stayed in touch with them through the entire event for the Dockside fire, and they have committed to put forward regular updates for the public on social media and on their website to make sure residents stay fully informed with any major incident that they're involved with. As well as the fact that they will be adding pertinent information which was relevant to residents, like wind speed, wind direction, to make sure that for all information that is available in the public realm, they are putting forward under their banner, which obviously the public know and trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Worcester. Anybody else want to respond? Okay, so I'd like to invite Councillor Gibson to come back, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. All responses noted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leader. Okay, agenda item 9, nomination of mayor. This item has been withdrawn from the agenda. Item 10, the nomination for deputy mayor. This has been withdrawn also from the agenda. Agenda item 11 is the pay policy report. I invite the leader to speak and propose the recommendations, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The proposed pay policy statement sets out the Council's overarching reward strategy, including many of the associated terms and conditions, and is designed to satisfy the requirements of the Localism Act 2011. For ease of reference, the key changes in the document compared with that published in 2023 are the figures for payments made in 23-24, which are set out in categories section 3.6 of the pay policy statement, which have been updated. Section 4, which outlines the changes to the chief executive earnings. Section 5 of the pay policy statement reflects the requirements of the trade union facility time publication requirements that came into force on the 1st of April. And the figures to reflect the time spent on trade union duties have been updated in the tables at Appendix 4. Details of remuneration for senior staff have been updated and are in Appendix 1G. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So I'd like to invite Councillor Baldock to second the recommendations and ask whether you reserve your right.
I'll second and reserve my right. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. Councillor Bowen, would you like to speak on this?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Very briefly, this paper is one that we are required to put to council. It's a formality and it's factual. No doubt there will be some members of the public who think that our staff are very well paid. Some may think are overpaid. And there are also some people who also think councillors also earn over £100,000, as the chief executive will, and I will recall from a discussion we had with some scouts last year, if only. Happy to support, but mindful that pay is a huge proportion of the council budget, and pay awards must be considered in the big scheme of council finances, given the issues we have. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. I'd like to invite Councillor Perkin to speak, please.
Thank you. Just like to kind of come back on what Councillor Bowen just said around the pay scales of the officers. I don't know if it's particularly appropriate to speak about that in a council meeting, but also I just want to add some points around the value of our officers and the work that they do for the people of the borough. The only thing that I have to note is that in Appendix 1B, it refers to Cabinet. So if we could change that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkin. So I open the debate up to members. Anybody would? Okay. So this is just a hand one, isn't it?
Sorry, Councillor Baldock reserved his
Ah, thank you. Yeah. Councillor Baldock, I forgot you. Please, would you like to speak?
Happy to move. Happy to move straight to the vote.
Thanks, Councillor Baldock. You're right on the end there. Oh, anyway, right, so all those in agreement, would you please raise your hand? And those against? Two hands going.
And abstentions.
And abstentions. Yeah. Motion's carried, councillors. Item 12 is the review of polling place, Tenham and Linstead Ward. I invite the leader to speak on these recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know that this one in particular brought great excitement to Councillor Bowen when he discovered what the relocation was going to be, and to many others, of course. So, Council is asked to consider proposals to change arrangements for voting in the Tenham and Linstead polling district at the request of Linstead and Norton Primary School, and after logistical and financial reasons, installation a mobile unit at the above school proved rather difficult. An alternative was sought, and you'll find out about that shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Councillor Bowen, would you like to second recommendations and speak now, or reserve your right?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Very happy to second, and I'll reserve my right.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Councillor Perkin, would you like to speak? No. I'm going to open the debate to members. Right. Let me see who it is. So, Councillor Smead, Councillor Gibson. So, Councillor Gibson first, please, and then Councillor Smead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Very brief question from me. I just wondered, it's not mentioned in the Equalities and Diversity Statement, but if any thought had been given to the possible accessibility issues for those who perhaps suffer with alcoholism, those who abstain from alcohol, perhaps the Muslim, Jewish or Salvationist communities, and what impact proposing a pub as a polling place might have on them and their ability to vote. I don't know the size of those communities in Tenham and Linstead, but they are nonetheless important electors in Swale, and we should give them some credit in our subject and in our measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Councillor Smead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The arrangements for the polling station in Linstead over the last couple of elections has been totally unsatisfactory. In fact, last year they ran out of diesel for the generator, and when I went back to the polling station at about 9 o'clock at night, the area was in complete darkness and people were literally voting by torchlight. So the proposed new venue, the Black Lion, is literally just down the road. In answer to Councillor Gibson's point, the room that's being proposed has a totally separate entrance to the main pub, so it's not as if people have to walk through the pub to get to the polling booth. It will be blocked off from the rest of the pub. It's through a garden. It's all on one level, so it's wheelchair accessible. So I think it's a very suitable venue to relocate the polling station, and I fully support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smead. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have always taken the view that if the local members are happy, and God knows we've had enough problems finding polling places in the past in Sheerness, and I know the rest of you have because I've been here a long while, if the local members think it's okay, then I wouldn't dream of saying, oh, no, I don't think so. So I would quite happily support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Anyone else? Councillor Bowen, then, would you like to come back?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy, as I said, very happy to second this. The polling station has been said, has been on the school site for many years, and has gone from being actually in the school to a porter cabin on the grounds. And as Councillor Speed said last time, the diesel run out. Not a particularly great advert for going to vote. I very much understand the concern and the reasons why the school doesn't think this can continue. And the proposed site at the Black Lion is an excellent choice, not because it's a pub, but it does have some parking, which the school doesn't. And it's closer to the more densely populated part of Linstead, just. I urge all members to agree this change, and taking the point about the accessibility, Councillor Speed is absolutely right. It will be separate. The actual polling station will be separated from the pub, and the entrance will be a separate entrance in that is accessible to all. So I urge all members to agree this change. That could also increase turnout. I may just have the odd teller or two wanting the chance to man it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Okay. Right. Where am I? We can now go to the vote, yeah? All those in agreement, please raise their hands. I was listening to Those against? And abstentions? Any? Okay, the recommendation's carried. Thank you, councillors. We have reached that item, the final budget. And medium-term financial plan, including council tax resolutions. Do I read that? Stop it. I invite Councillor Tim Gibson, the leader, to speak on the recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In introducing this report, could I firstly thank the Director of Resources, the Head of Finance and Procurement and senior officers in the finance team for their extremely hard work and support. There have been extreme challenges for us as an authority in producing a balanced budget, and there have been some very, very difficult challenges in seeking efficiency savings and income generation. That said, we are in a better position than many councils who are facing the stark reality of having to issue Section 114 notices and effectively facing bankruptcy. Council income has remained static over time, due mostly to the real-term reduction in central government funding. Councils have become dependent somewhat on business rate income, which of course can be quite varied. Years of underfunding and the uncertainty of one-year settlements from government has made it extremely difficult to find a sound fiscal footing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. I'd like to invite Councillor Baldock to second the motion and speak now, or reserve your right.
Happy to second and reserve my right.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. So now we move on with 9 amendments that have been received and circulated to members and published on the Council's website. Now that the recommendations have been proposed and seconded, I will invite members to propose their amendments in order. So amendment number 1 is the use of the reserves as a result of a loss of KCC waste enabling payments. I invite Councillor Gibson to propose the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Following the last-minute announcement that KCC waste enabling payments of £297,000 will no longer be provided to Swale, I'm proposing reserves are used to offset the loss of the £297,000, and officers are tasked with identifying savings to the waste collection service that mitigate the loss of support from KCC over the medium term.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. I'd like to invite Councillor Baldock to second the amendment and speak or reserve his right.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Happy to second formally and reserve my right.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. So in accordance with Procedure Rule 3.1 3.14 to 3, the Section 151 officer has advised the following. Given the short notice of this change to the budgeted income for 2024-25, an increase in the use of reserves is an acceptable proposal, whilst alternative saving options were assessed. If compensating savings are not made, the ongoing budget gap will increase and alternative savings will need to be identified in the medium term. I now open the debate for members to speak on the amendment. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This amendment seeks to address the reduction of grant money from KCC. This is disappointing, I agree, from a Swale perspective. But KCC intended the grant to be a temporary measure when it was set up. But we came to rely on it so that when there is uproar, when the body awarding the grant cuts it. I do support the amendment, but think this council should have been better prepared to react when the grants are withdrawn. I add, though, about the Citizen Advice Service by this council, who until this evening was happy to cut their grant. We hear about potential job losses if we don't give grant money, but is it okay if we give a grant, but then we have to cut our staff because of it? Could happen in the future, but happy to support this. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Oh, Councillor Worcester, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I share the shock that my colleague from the opposition has regarding the information. Very last minute. Well done to officers to come back with this information at such short notice from this. It's surprising to me to hear it, and very sad that, in fact, that KCC obviously do not share Swale Borough Council's commitment to these issues that are very, very dear to residents, and it's sad to see that the budget position at KCC unfortunately doesn't support their residents in this very fundamental area that is going to be a long-term problem for not just Swale but for all boroughs in Kent and nationally. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Worcester. Councillor Gould.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's more of a question than a comment. Just given that the waste contract has been through long negotiations and it's only just been set, how practical to instantly ask for savings from it is this going to be, or should we really be starting to look for alternative savings pretty well straight away? That would be my question about the strategy here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gould. Councillor Perkin.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I wanted to raise the Environment Committee that this was discussed at Kent County Council. If you haven't watched it, it's worth a watch. Mainly to see the face of the officer, really, that is responding to this cut. He said during his little preamble that this cut went directly against the officer's recommendations, and that the payments were an investment in recycling in the borough, and that cuts went against the collegiate work with lower tier authorities. So it's incredibly disappointing to hear members of this chamber also supporting that cut at Kent County Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkin. Councillor Palmer, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry. Yes, we seem to be facing a lot of cuts. Either the government, because of their mismanagement of their accounts, seem to pass all the buck down to local authorities and expect the local authorities to pick up the cuts that they impose on them. Now we're facing cuts against the officers' advice, well pointed out, against the officers' advice from KCC. There is a common denominator, who's in charge of the government and who's in charge of KCC, but I can't work it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Councillor Whiting.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of facts, really. Councillor Bowen was correct in that this was a time-limited. When this grant was first made, it was to encourage boroughs and districts to increase their recycling and to pay a grant over that would enable them to buy the kit they needed to do that. And it was it was always a time limited thing. The contract we had with Swale and the other authorities that KCC had did come to a natural end this month, at the end of next month, sorry. Anyway, so I agree that perhaps Swale should have been more prepared for that. And in any event, taking money out of reserves for a one-off payment, which this is, because next year the government will make it Swale's responsibility to recycle, not KCC's responsibility. So the cost of moving this forward in future years will fall to Swale, not KCC. And this has brought it forward a year, and to use the money out of reserves, I fully understand. KCC has clearly got its own financial issues, but this was a contract that was coming to a natural end, and it outlived its original purpose. So, I will say that just to put the record straight from some who may not have understood the detail of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whiting. Councillor Harrison, please.
Yeah, sometimes, Madam Mayor, I don't always tune in, but I was not aware, and I do read my papers, but sometimes, as we all know, things don't always come in front of you in black and white. I wasn't aware that this was a temporary grant from the Kent County Council. And even if it was a temporary grant from the Kent County Council, who I get have got their own problems, I do think telling councillors or telling officers in December, oh, by the way, you know that 300k that we've been giving you, well, you won't be getting it after the 1st of April. It's bad manners, if nothing else. What really got me, though, was that councillors in Swale who sit down at County Hall voted for it, knowing the effect that it would have on our budget. I think that's totally appalling, and you need to see where your loyalties lie. So that's 300k down. So we've got to find the money for that. Oh, we're going to close those 2 supported living units in Swale. Bridge House and Johnson House. Vulnerable young people. We're shutting them. Who picks up the tab? Swale Borough Council. Because it's Swale Borough Council staff that they're coming along to ask for help, support and guidance. And if they fit the criteria, vulnerable young people, yes, of course they do, then it's a responsibility on us to find them somewhere to live. So think through some of your decisions over there, because the bottom line is my residents are paying for all of it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Thank you. Councillor Lehman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In response to Councillor Whiting's arguments, I would just like to point out that the paper that went to Environment and Transport Committee in January, which 8 Conservative members decided to vote against the officer recommendation, paragraph 6 in that paper that went to that committee was legal implications. 6.1, the requirement of the Environmental Protection Act 1990 requires that these agreements should be renewed as all collection authorities still provide waste collection services that are more comprehensive than the required 2 types of separate recycling as per the EPA 1990. 6.2, the Environmental Protection Waste Recycling Payments Regulations requires that the payments to be made by a Waste Disposal Authority, KCC, under section 52, blah, 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 consist of such amount representing the authority's net saving. KCC and Swale officers had negotiated an agreement over the last few years by which KCC paid roughly 1/3 of the amount that Swale saves KCC in respect of the recycling we collect, and KCC and Swale officers had agreed a new payment for 1 more year, which could be extended for another year if it was needed in 2025. And for Councillor Whiting to suggest that Swale should have been ready for this when we were ready and we had agreed an extension with KCC officers is either disingenuous or ignorant. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lehman. Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't expect the answer straight away, but being a fairly simple person, I wondered whether, with the recycling, what income comes from, say, scrap metal, paper, and various other things to go in. As I say, I don't expect anybody to know the answer, but obviously, if we recycle more, we ought to get more money.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. Councillor Martin.
Keep it very brief. You mentioned, Councillor Harrison mentioned December. Less than a month on this one. How many times have we said in the past when we've been setting budgets, actually, let's not make that cut yet to that service. We need to defer it to give them a year to work out how they're going to fundraise, how they're going to plug that gap. Let's face it, when we set our budget tonight, the work on next year's budget is going to start in about, what, a month maybe, at a push, yesterday? There we go. We need to make sure that we're having those discussions early enough. You cannot go making a decision to cut funding to somebody a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks out before they have to set their final budget and expect them to be prepped for it when the work has been put in to extend that funding further. It is a joke. I fully appreciate that people are in a difficult financial state. I appreciate that KCC is a difficult financial state. But frankly, it's ludicrous to put that cut in so late in the day. Fully support the amendment. It's the only way that we could conceivably plug the gap without officers spending 24 hours a day for a week trying to work out where they were going to find it from with the administration. So fully appreciate why that's had to come forward and we'll be fully supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Is there anybody else that wants to speak? Councillor Jays.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Suddenly the opposition agree in using reserves when it favours them. This is a 1.2% cut to our budget, being snatched away by a failing county council. Members in this room voted to inflict this harm on this council. Are they fit to vote on this budget? Conservatives care not one bit about the environment. We could say that they're trying to throw us under a bus, but they've cut them all too.
Councillor Baldock, would you like to come back, please?
Yeah, I think I will. Okay, for those who, this is the first time they've had this budget process, normally we send the draft budget out for consultation, and as we get a little bit of money back from the government very late in the day, we're able to address some particular concerns that the public raise. This year, as you might have noticed, we're not so fortunate, as £297,000 at the last minute has been taken away from us by KCC. This is not a temporary thing. This isn't, a short term. There has been an inter-authority agreement on this since at least 2011. So we have had, at the last moment, an extra £297,000 snatched away from us, which we could have used to address public concerns raised by the budget consultation. And what is especially sad about this pernicious act is that not only is this £297,000 taken away from the council taxpayers of Swale, seconded by a former Swale councillor, but was vocally supported by someone here tonight. The argument was that because we had already entered into a contract in good faith, believing KCC would honour their commitments, they could basically pull the rug from under us, as it was too late for us to do anything about it. This payment was supposed to be in lieu of recycling credits, which the county receives. They were informed that doing this would actually cost them money. I can't see there will be an immediate knockback from this, said one member of the committee who happens to be with us tonight, as he supported taking the money from our taxpayers.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
No.
The motion that's being debated is whether or not we take £297,000 from reserves. It is not to debate the decisions or otherwise of meetings at Kent County Council. Stick to the point of the motion that's on the table, because we are diverting very much away from it. Thank you.
We are actually focusing right on it. And when people ask us, could we use the money?
Point of order, I would like your ruling, please, on that, Madam Mayor.
I will continue, yes.
No, but can you just stay on the statement?
It is exactly on the topic of the £297,000 that somebody in this room has taken from us, and what we could have used to spend on things like retaining free car parks, halving the cost of a proposed nighttime parking to £1.50, pitch fees for under 16 and mini football. All those things that we could have done had we not had that money taken from us, we are not now able to do. So, when they ask us why we aren't doing that, go out and tell them, because Councillor Whiting gave the money back to KCC.
Point of order. Point of order.
This £297,000 Yeah, I'm just summing up.
On on a point of information, as my name's been mentioned, I didn't make a decision to take money away from Slough Borough Council. The decision is an executive decision made by the leader. The committee that met made recommendations. That is all. So I would like Councillor Baldock to withdraw the statement that I personally took money away from this council, because I did not.
Let me correct that. When people ask us why we can't halve the nighttime charges,
Madam
we can
Mayor,
tell
are you
them...
going to say sorry or not?
If you let me. Yeah, you can tell them Councillor Whiting recommended the money was taken away and given to KCC. My apologies, he didn't have the decision. When they ask us, why don't we retain the free car parks we currently have, we can tell them Councillor Whiting recommended it be given back to KCC, but of course he didn't make the decision. That £297,000 equates to more than the entire amount of a 3% increase in council tax. Every bit of money extra that we raised this year in council tax will now go to KCC.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. Okay. Right. Yeah. There will be now a recorded vote on the amendment, and I will ask each member in physical attendance to state their vote. Councillor Baldock.
For.
Councillor Bonnet.
For.
Councillor Booth.
For.
Councillor Bowen. Councillor Braun, sorry.
For.
Councillor Carnell.
For.
Councillor Kavanagh. Oh, it's not here. Councillor Chapman.
For.
Councillor Cheeseman. Councillor Clark. That's Roger Clark. Councillor Simon Clark.
For.
Councillor Charles Gibson. Councillor Tim Gibson.
For.
Councillor Kieran Golding. Councillor Gould.
For.
Councillor Hall's not here. Councillor Harrison. Right, Councillor Henderson's not here. Councillor Hunt.
For.
Councillor Jackson.
For.
Councillor Jays.
For.
Councillor Last.
For.
Councillor Lehman.
For.
Councillor MacDonald.
For.
Councillor Marchington. Councillor Martin. Ben Martin.
For.
Councillor Claire Martin. Councillor Miller.
For.
Councillor Moore. Councillor Neal. Councillor No.
For.
Councillor Nundy. Councillor Chris Palmer.
For.
Councillor Richard Palmer.
For.
Councillor Hannah Perkin. Councillor Ashley Schnell.
For.
Councillor Julian Speed. Councillor Paul Stephen.
For.
Myself, 4. Councillor Terry Thompson.
For.
Councillor Mark Tucker.
For.
Councillor Angie Vowles.
4.
Councillor Watson.
4.
Councillor Worcester. Councillor Whiting.
4.
Councillor Winkles. Councillor Ashley Wise.
4.
Okay. Yeah, so I've got 42 and 1 here. Yeah. 42 for that, and there was 1 abstention, so that amendment's carried. Amendment 2's so I've got a written amendment 2, but I think there might be a change.
Amendment 8 first.
Yeah. Yeah. Councillors, we are actually going to go to Amendment 8 before 2. Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that before I said it. Yeah, no, I've spoken to Councillor Gibson.
Yeah.
So I had actually spoken about it. I've just got to find the... what page? Sorry, just bear with me for a minute. It's right at the end of the order now, isn't it? Yep, I'm here. So Amendment 8 is the reduction in members' grants to 0.
Order, Madam Mayor, if I may. Just for clarification, under the Constitution, it says amendments will be taken in order of received. To the monitoring officer, does that not mean that they should be taken in the order they were received? Thank you.
So it was Mayor's discretion. I was actually asked about the change.
Yeah, so, the Constitution says. Yeah, so the leader has asked you to.
The leader actually asked me to.
To amend the order, and you exercised your discretion.
Yeah, and I made the decision to change. Yeah. Okay, so Amendment 8 is reduction in members' grants to 0. 8. Oh, right, so I've got a different script's different then. Okay, Faversham Pools funding to be restored to 22-23 budget levels, with 20,000 being funded from the additional government settlement, and that's proposed by Councillor Perkin. So where's it in my script?
Am I okay to go?
It's right for the words. This is the
I'm going to go. Okay. So, first of all, thank you to the leader and to Madam Mayor for allowing us to debate this amendment earlier in the agenda. Faversham Pools celebrates its 60th anniversary this year, and it plays an absolutely crucial part in the life of the town. Nearly 250,000 swimmers visit each year, making the pools Faversham's most visited attraction. As well as this, it supports a very active swimming club of over 300 members from the age of 5 to 85, supports 27 local schools with their Learn to Swim programme, and works with the local medical practices to provide reduced cost swimming for health purposes for some of our residents. They've also recently worked involving the Faversham Disability Forum to dramatically improve the accessibility for people with disabilities, who we know benefit hugely from being able to exercise while supported by water. Given the challenging economic environment that many charities find themselves in, with record inflation and spiralling energy costs, the pools are under increasing pressure. We are asking the Council to reinstate the £20,000 that was removed from the pools in 22-23 to fully enable the trustees to provide a modern and financially accessible option for families in Swale. This is proposed to be taken from the additional government settlement, money that we were not expecting to receive, and can make a choice to support a key community asset. Please support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkin. And Councillor Martin, you are seconding the amendment. Do you wish to speak? Or?
Happy to second, and I'll reserve for now.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Martin. So in accordance with Procedure Rule 3.1 to .14.3 and the Section 151 officer has advised the following. In isolation, this proposal will reduce the budget gap by 159k by applying 20k of the 179k additional government grant awarded for 24-25. Any proposal to continue that level of funding beyond 24-25 would increase the budget savings requirement by a 20k. This comment does not take into account of an agreement of proposed amendments listed. Yeah. Okay, I open the debate for members to speak on the amendment. Sorry, Councillor Gould.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to support this amendment. Councillor Perkin mentioned in passing the ability to refer patients to the pool to improve their activity and health and rehabilitation. And I would just, the recent scheme that has been introduced to enable people to do this at a reduced rate has been very valuable and useful for patients of the practices in the town. And I think anything that would help support the pools financially in this aspect of their service to the town will be very much welcomed, and so I will be supporting the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gould. Okay. Councillor Martin, do you want to come back?
Not much to come back on there, but we'll go with it. Right, so let's just give a very brief history. So Faversham Pools was built thanks to the idea of a mile of pennies. People around the town were given the opportunity to donate a penny a week in order to build the pools. The project started out back in the 1840s, I believe it was. Faversham was demanding a pool back then. It was Faversham people that went and raised the funds to build it. And 60 years ago, we got the outdoor pool. 60 years ago, we got the outdoor pool with its lovely diving boards, which are still in use to this day. It's one of the most popular visitor attractions within this borough, attracting people from far and wide. I believe I'm right in saying it is still the only outdoor diving boards available in the country. It's facing difficulties. Unlike council pools, it wasn't entitled to funding when the government issued out funding to support leisure centres with their energy bills. That money had to come out of what the charity had raised. We have seen that actually these pools can do good things and can be well managed, but we have to bear in mind that when you have leisure facilities, if you only have wet side doesn't make money. It's not possible to make a profit with wet side only sports facilities. So they rely on subsidy. Now, given the current economic climate, it is important that we seek to protect the assets that we do have so that when the times are better, they can go out and do the necessary fundraising that's required. And they're already out there trying for £1 million to try and boost the coffers. Many of you will have had an email from the co-chairs over the past week explaining what the situation is. One of the key charitable aims of the Faversham Pools Trust is to ensure that swimming is available at an affordable price for all. They're talking about having to increase the price of an adult swim to £7 or £8 per session. That's no longer an affordable price. That's starting to look at their charitable objectives and going, it's not viable. So I please ask that you support this amendment and protect swimming in the east of the borough.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. So I now will move on to a recorded vote on the amendment, and we'll ask each member to vote. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's fine.
The amendment, that's fine. I'd like to ask him whether he wants to exercise the right reply from the original. Yeah, so it asked Councillor Gibson if he'd like to make a right of reply. He didn't get it on the first one because it was his amendment, so there's no right of reply. So there's, yeah, it's all right. It's this one. That.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
We discussed this at the weekend.
Yeah,
Do you
remember?
Yeah.
That one there.
Okay, sorry, I've just taken some advice. So I now would like to ask Councillor Gibson, as the proposer of the original motion, whether he wishes to exercise his right of reply to the debate on this amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll reserve my right, thank you. So, sorry, apologies, Madam Mayor. I have nothing further to add.
Okay, then we can move on to the recorded vote. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Baldock?
Against.
Councillor Bonney?
Against.
Councillor Booth?
Vehemently against.
Councillor Bowen? Councillor Braun?
Against.
Councillor Cornell?
Against.
Councillor Chapman?
Against.
Councillor Cheeseman?
Against.
Councillor Roger Clark? Councillor Simon Clark?
Against.
Councillor Gibson? Charles Gibson? Councillor Tim Gibson?
Against.
Councillor Goulding? Councillor Gould?
For.
Councillor... was not he? Councillor Harrison?
Against.
Councillor Hunt?
Against.
Councillor Jackson? Councillor Jackson?
Abstain.
Councillor Jays?
Abstain.
Councillor Last? Councillor Lehman?
Abstain.
Councillor MacDonald?
Abstain.
Councillor Marchington?
Abstain.
Councillor Ben Martin?
For.
Councillor Miller?
Against.
No, she can't. She's a trustee. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So, sorry, can you repeat, Councillor Miller?
Against.
Councillor Moore? Councillor Neal?
Abstain.
Councillor No? Councillor Nundy?
Abstain.
Councillor Chris Palmer?
Against.
Councillor Richard Palmer?
Against.
Councillor Perkin? Councillor Schnell? Ashley Shill?
Against.
Councillor Speed?
Abstain.
Councillor Paul Stephen?
Against.
Myself against. Councillor Thompson? Councillor Tucker?
Against.
Councillor Vowles?
Against.
Councillor Watson?
Against.
Councillor Worcester? Councillor Whiting?
Against.
Councillor Wise, Ashley Wise? Six, abstain, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Abstain. 4, 1, 2, 3, Okay, there were 5 votes for, 26 against, and 11 abstentions. So the amendment has fallen. Right. Yeah. So are we moving on to amendment number 2 now?
Amendment number 3, aren't we? Amendment number 3? Amendment number 3. 3.
So 2's been withdrawn.
No.
2.
The 3 now.
3. Right, okay. Fun and games with numbers tonight, getting them in the right order.
Next time we do a recorded vote, can you make sure that people turn their microphone on when they vote?
Right, amendment number 3 is full grant to be awarded to Swales Citizens Advice Service.
Yeah, you're taking 3 before 2.
I'm taking 3 before 2. Again, it's been discussed. So, yeah, carry on. This decision's been made, councillors, so...
By the mayor.
And by myself. So I now invite the amendment 3 is full grant to be awarded to Swales Citizens Advice Service. I invite Councillor Charles Gibson to propose your amendment, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Apologies if my speech is somewhat disjointed. It was written rather with the presumption that we would have been discussing citizens' advice in a previous amendment, so I will hop around ever so slightly. I would like to propose an addition to our amendment due to the change of the order. So if my seconder, Councillor Martin, is content, I'd like to propose that we add to the amendment the wording, the remaining 113,000 money moving to reduce the budget gap, the sentence that features in the following the previous amendment that we're taking. Claire?
I accept Councillor Gibson's amendment to the amendment.
Amendments, we're going to be dreaming amendments tonight, aren't we? Yeah, I can accept that, Councillor Gibson.
On a point of order, Madam Mayor, apologies. I thought that when we amended an amendment, we had to have a vote of all the members present to agree that the amendment should be changed.
I'm just going on advice at the moment, Councillor Whiting. Yeah, the proposer and the seconder have agreed to change it, so we can now carry on with it as the changed amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the clarification. Always good to be the right side of the Constitution in all that we do. We're speaking today about the Citizens Advice Bureau, the Swales Citizens Advice, who do an unbelievable amount of fantastic work across our borough. We're also talking, as we were in the previously discussed amendment, about money we did not know was coming to us, extra money that does not affect the balance of the budget and that therefore allows us to protect this vital service without having a major financial impact upon our council's standing. You will have seen that we have submitted in our group a number of amendments about citizens' advice. That is because we are determined to do all we can to save it. I implore you to support this one, if only to save me standing up 4 more times to repeat myself and keeping us here all night. But if that is what is required to protect citizens' advice, that is what this group will do. We have already talked about the vital work that lots of organisations do across this borough. Citizens' Advice are right at the fore of that work. They do an enormous amount of great work supporting our most vulnerable residents at their most vulnerable times. They do it across the borough, on the island, in Sittingbourne, in Faversham, and across all of our villages. They are a remarkable, remarkable organisation. And sadly, the original budget proposal to cut £60,000 from their grant would have been devastating. It would have been a cut that they would have struggled to survive, and they certainly would have struggled to maintain the level of services we are currently receiving in our towns and villages. The stability of this funding from Council to the CAB is vital to continue. We can hope that new streams of funding may come from a lottery or other schemes, but at the moment, with the political uncertainty, we cannot afford to gamble with the future of this service on that basis. We must bake in and commit to the full required funding now to give the staff and the volunteers at the CAB the certainty they deserve. Given how long we've already been here and how many more there are to go through, I will not wax too lyrical on the incredible impact of the CAB. You can all read their feedback that's provided to the budget paper. You can all see their fantastic work on social media and their website. They are a real testament to the great work that happens across Swale. One small thing that I will do to add to drive home a key point is that the largest single group of users of Citizens Advice in my ward of Abbey and Faversham are disabled women, a group least able to cope with this cut, least able to move and travel if the service was withdrawn from our town, and least able to fall back on other resources. If we withdraw this support, the risk of closure and collapse of CAB services in our area is too great. These most vulnerable of
3
our
minutes,
residents-
Councillor.
Thank you. I'll finish up. May fall between the cracks into crisis and call upon even greater levels of funding at every tier of government. We thank very much for supporting this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Claire Martin, I invite you to second the amendment or speak or reserve your right.
I second the amendment and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. So, in accordance with Procedure Rule 3.1.14.3, the Section 151 officer has advised the following. The additional grant awarded following the publication of the final budget proposals would reduce the budget gap, and that the required use of reserves for 2024-25 by 179k. This proposal to reinstate grant funding of 66k will reduce that position to 113k. This comment does not take into account of the agreement of the proposed amendments listed, other amendments listed.
And it's now the amended amendment.
And it's now obviously a statement for the amended amendment. Those wishing to speak, could I have Councillor Baldock first, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'd like to thank Councillors Jackson and Nundy for withdrawing their amendment, which seek to provide half of the money, enabling this one to get heard first.
Councillor Baldock, they haven't withdrawn.
Hopefully. Hopefully won't need to be heard, even though we did agree that it would come afterwards. Yes, it is important. We know the importance of the Citizens Advice Bureau, and in fact this was why we discussed setting up a community lottery last year, because we knew that top money was tight. We didn't know, of course, that we're going to lose 300,000 extra, but even so, even still tight, this is the sort of thing that we need to ensure can survive in Swale. Hopefully this will be the last time we need as a council to step in. Hopefully we'll be able to get a successful community lottery up and running this year that will give them the confidence going forward for future years that there is money coming in and they will be able to continue to do their good work. But in the absence of that, this year we need a stopgap, and I'm more than happy to fully support this motion, and thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. Councillor Palmer, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank Councillor Gibson for bringing this amendment forward, and he eloquently put the case forward for Citizens Advice. It was good news to get the extra money from the government, and as Councillor Baldock alluded to earlier, such times when we get extra money, we can make decisions based on that. And I feel quite comfortable supporting this, and I will definitely be voting for it. I won't be making a recommendation. I will vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Councillor Harrison, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I listened carefully to the proposer, and if we give this 60k, it will give them a year to look at other sources of funding. So what have they been doing for the past 39 years that I've been raising this issue? this council, there's one colleague across the way who has got almost as much knowledge of it as I have. We very, very, very heavily funded CAB over the years. I'm talking hundreds of thousands of pounds. But as our grants got cut from government, we had to cut our cloth accordingly. And the money that we did used to give to charities was gradually reduced. I have said many times in this chamber, I have said at other bodies, Swale Housing Association, Amicus, and I think I've got as far as Amicus Horizon, who used to chip in. Can you who sit on the board, we've got 3 people who sit on the CAB. We've got 3 people who sit there. What have they been feeding back over the past 39 years on behalf of the Borough Council that the CAS has not been looking for alternative sources of funding? There are the utilities, the gas, the water, the lecky, the Openreach. There's the banks. Just about every bank has gone in Faversham. CAB is helping to support the help, support and guidance and debt advice defo for the people of Faversham, because you lot have cleared off out. Gradually in Sittingbourne and Sheppey, the banks have cleared off out. And this has been raised over and over and over again. Ask them to chip in. Tell them you're doing a debt advice project. You want their help and funding to pay for it. It's not for the want of trying. So, you know, I am prepared to say, okay, this year, but it is the... oh, well, they'll have... No, it won't come next year. Things are getting worse and worse and worse. I can remember when 68% of this budget was paid for by the government grant. What are we now, 8%? Go and find yourself some money. I missed that bit. You know, go and find some income to support the things for your residents, all those statutory services. So, whilst I am prepared to support it, I do think that certainly the 3 people that we've got on CAS and the other people in this room who sit on it from other bodies really need to get a grip of this. There are funding streams out there, not just the ones I've raised. There are some very large charitable foundations.
3 minutes.
That will help. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Nundy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you to Councillor Gibson for bringing this motion, this amendment to the meeting this evening. I think Citizens Advice Swale is an absolutely fantastic organisation. In the 3 months to December 2023, they dealt with 102 issues in my ward of Minster Cliffs. 75% of those people were over the age of 55, 25% were over the age of 65, 59% were female, and 77% were disabled. I know a few people in my ward and just around and about that have used Citizens Advice before, and they've given them some really sound advice. Through the Housing Support Fund, which I know we're not talking about, but the funding from that did go to Citizens Advice Swale, they helped clients repay over £37,000 in financial liabilities, and that's over the last 3 months alone. So I really think that Citizens Advice Swale do need to be protected. They do need to get funding, and it's only right and proper, as Councillor Harrison said, that a council should, you know, if there's been this agreement and they've given them money for years and years and years, they should give them time to find other funding sources rather than pulling it out right at the last minute. I will be supporting this and I will be voting in favour of it, and I would urge all councillors to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nundy. Councillor Ben Martin, please.
No surprise to see me supporting my colleague on this one. Let's look at some of the other things that CAB do, or CAS do. We can talk about the debt advice and the utilities. Yeah, great. They also deal with the homelessness advice. Pulling the rug from under CAS, and we all saw the email earlier in the month suggesting that the cut could well lead to them having to close their services across the borough, would no doubt result in an increase in users coming direct to the council's already overstretched homelessness services. That's something that we need to ensure is protected against. Could it be that if we were not to pass this amendment and not fund CAS, that we'd actually be cutting our nose to spite our face and increasing our costs elsewhere, perhaps on temporary accommodation bills that are already going through the roof? I think this is a worthy amendment. I congratulate my colleague on bringing it forward, and I hope everyone will support it tonight, and I hope that CAS can find other sources of funding for the long term, but this is the right decision to make tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To a certain extent, I agree with Councillor Harrison on this. I know. it's worrying. I might have to sit down. The proposer said that this money is needed, I quote, to save the Citizens Advice Service or Bureau, whatever you want to call it. Don't get me wrong on this. I totally understand and get the value of the services which they provide, not only to residents on domestic issues and financial issues, but also to workers on employment rights, where they may not have advice or representation from other areas. It is an important piece of work. However, this council last year was going to cut their grant, and it was only by a fortunate new stream of funding that was agreed that we were able to keep it. This council this year wanted to cut and wants to cut their grant. The irony of now that because we've got this extra bit of money, suddenly it's all, we need a stopgap to stop this from happening. Where do you draw the line? Other companies, other groups would love to have the same sort of funding, but they don't get it. They've known, the CAB has known for 2 years at least, that this is likely to happen. And as Councillor Harrison said, what have they done to potentially address this? What other sources of funding have they looked at? I haven't seen any from what's been said, which makes me think we haven't done anything, because we'll go to the council with our cap and say, please sir, I want some more. Well, the more is going to at some point have to stop. And as hard as that is, and as unpalatable as that is, it is going to be the case. So unless the CAB does find alternative means of funding, there's a future for them, sadly, whether it's saved or not, from this council, it is going to be inevitable. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Councillor Worcester.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to add something very small, and I would like to pay tribute to my colleague, Councillor Elliot Jays, with regards to making sure that this council and the other councillors that attend that board made sure that we knew this situation is. Because imagine CAB not existing and what pressure that would put on us going forward, especially for the island. We've only just got them back for face-to-face meetings, pushed by myself and Councillor Jays, extensive time that we have used in making sure that organisation feels supported enough to get back onto Sheppey. Now, I think 47 members here, in this room, we could look to ourselves and say, this is not just a funding issue for the CAB. This is about how we can support them, not just monetarily, but actually with the skills and resources we have in this room as ward councillors, because our wards are directly affected by these decisions. So yes, absolutely, I agree with, let's help them find extra funding, but let's look to ourselves to make sure that this organisation and other organisations have the keys to do so, to make sure that we're not back here in 12 months' time having the same discussion because we've given away money and then looked away. Let's not be those people. Let's not look away. Let's say, we're here, we've been elected to do so, we've been elected by the residents. Let's make sure we help them so we're not back here in 12 months' time. And I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Worcester. Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to ask members, I know two parishes that I serve on, Minster and Sheerness have been able to make a relatively small allocation to CAB. And I think if members are in parishes, I know times are hard for everyone, but if you can help a little bit, then I think that would be money well spent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. Councillor Paul Stephen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I have served as a trustee on CAS, and they do wonderful work. And they have in the past tried to raise funds with very little help from any big companies or firms. I think that by turning down this grant that we're going to offer them is like KCC doing exactly the same to us. You know, you just don't say you're not getting it now or you're getting a reduced amount. I think we should go for the full amount, and I think we should let them know that the future prospects of that continuing is very dubious, and that they should be looking for other ways of gaining grants to help themselves out. So if that can be made as a recommendation, it's not a threat, and I wouldn't like to threaten them, but they do need to know the situation that we as a council are in, that we cannot continue to fund as much as we would like to fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen. I'd like to come back to Councillor Claire Martin now, as she seconded the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that my colleagues have mostly covered everything that I was going to say. I would just like to say that I know that we're not trustees of the CAS, but we are elected to represent our residents and our most vulnerable people. So I think that we should really be supporting the full grant. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. And I would like to ask Councillor Tim Gibson, as the proposer of the original motion, whether he wishes to exercise his right to reply to the debate on this amendment.
Yes, indeed, I would, Madam Mayor. I too am a former trustee of the Citizens Advice Service, and they do an absolutely magnificent job. But whilst I was a trustee, I was imploring them to look for additional funding, external funding, to move things forward. Now, it may well be that they didn't have the skill sets or the wherewithal to do that. So what I think we should be saying to them is to echo what Councillor Worcester said, to reach out to them and say, how can we help you and support you in looking for this additional funding? Because I'm quite sure within this chamber, there are a stack load of us that have got those skill sets. And perhaps even just a little of our officer time, which is obviously quite precious as we stand anyway. But that offer is made, but I think we need to be very, very firm in saying that going forward, this can't happen, because heaven forbid we were an authority that was going down the 114 route. They would come in, and because it's not a statutory responsibility, they would get nothing, which is a really atrocious position to be in. So the business model, the way in which their funding base is achieved, really does need to be resolved. And I, for one, will be more than willing to assist them in what they need to do. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. So we will move on to a recorded vote on the amendment, and I will ask each member to answer with their name. And those members that are on the CAS board, obviously you can't vote. So, Councillor Baldock.
For.
Councillor Bonney.
Four.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. Put your mics on. Councillor Booth.
Against.
Councillor Bowen.
Abstain.
Councillor Braun.
For.
Councillor Carnell.
For.
Councillor Chapman.
For.
Councillor Cheeseman.
For.
Councillor Roger Clark. Councillor Simon Clark.
For.
Councillor Charles Gibson.
For.
Councillor Tim Gibson.
4.
Councillor Alistair Gould.
4.
Councillor Angela Harrison.
4.
Councillor James Hunt.
Against.
Councillor Carol Jackson.
4.
Councillor Mark Last.
4.
Councillor Rich Lehman.
4.
Councillor Peter MacDonald.
4.
Councillor Peter Marchington.
4.
Councillor Ben Martin.
4.
Councillor Claire Martin.
4.
Councillor Charlie Miller.
4.
Councillor Leanne Moore. Councillor Pete Neal.
4.
Councillor Torano.
4.
Councillor Tom Lundy.
4.
Councillor Chris Palmer.
4.
Councillor Richard Palmer.
4.
Councillor Ashley Sherl.
4.
Councillor Julian Speed.
Against.
Councillor Paul Stephen.
4.
Myself, 4. Councillor Terry Thompson.
4.
Councillor Mark Tucker.
Against.
Councillor Angie Vallis.
4.
Councillor Karen Watson.
4.
Councillor Dolly Worcester.
Vehemently 4.
Councillor Mike Whiting.
Abstain.
Councillor Ashley Wise.
4.
Thank you, councillors. Councillors, voting was 433, against 5, abstentions 2, so the amendment stands.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. As that motion included the words the remaining 146,000 moving into reserves to reduce the budget gap, does that have any knock-on effect for any of the other amendments?
Lisa, could I have your advice, please?
Yes, so it was 113,000 going to the budget gap because. Can I speak?
Yeah, please. Yes, please.
So the amendment that's just been passed, or you said that the budget gap to be reduced by the balance of the grant, which is 133,000. So if you are 13, sorry, not 33, the grant was 33. That means if you are committing that remaining grant to support the budget gap, then any further amendments I would suggest that have got that request in them, you've already made a decision on that. Following on from that, as this amendment was amended, any other amendments can be proposed to be slightly amended for alternative uses of funding, which at this late stage is just an increase in the take from reserves.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah. So are we going on to amendment number 2? Amendment number 2. So it's reduced the reduction in the grant to Swale CAS.
Madam Mayor, I wish to withdraw this number 2.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. I'll go from this, I think.
Do you want to call your break and then people if
Yeah.
they decide what they want to do.
What I think we'll have a 15 minutes. Yeah, we'll have a 15 minutes recess so that everybody can sort of have a little think about what they want to do. Councillor Clark.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, you haven't asked if the seconder of the proposal, number 2, would agree to withdraw.
All right, councillors, can you sit down, please? Please, we're still talking.
Madam Mayor, I'm happy with that.
Yes, sorry. Councillor Nundy needed to confirm that. You have to just wait for us to leave. Okay, councillors, we're on amendment number 4. Reduction in members' grants to zero with resilient funds awarded to CAS and Faversham Pools. And it's Charles Gibson to propose.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Following the previous amendment, I'd like to withdraw amendments 4, 5 and 6, please.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Do the seconders agree?
It's the same seconder.
It's the same seconder.
Yes.
Right, 4, 5 and 6, right. So we move on to... 7. Let me find 7. Okay, so 7 is Councillor Hannah Perkin. Proposing members' grants to be reduced to zero and the resident 47,000 to be split between the area committees to support the work programme of the committees.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I think it's important to say that I don't think there's going to be a huge amount of support for this particular amendment in the chamber. That said, I think it's really important that we start a conversation about how we make the area committees more able to respond effectively and quickly to residents' concerns when they bring them to us as area committees. So the amendment is there. It is to remove members' grants and to split them 4 ways to support the work programme of the various area committees. There is also argument this actually improves our transparency in terms of giving out grants or supporting a work programme, and secondly it means that we are able to respond quickly and effectively to residents. That's all I've got to say about it. I hope that you can support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Ben Martin, I invite you to second the amendment, and you wish to speak or reserve your right. Oh, it's down. I've got you down. Sorry, Councillor. So Claire Martin.
Yes, I second Councillor Perkin.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Are you reserving your right?
No.
Are you going to speak then?
Oh, I am reserved. Yes, sorry.
Okay. In accordance with the procedure rule 3.1.14.3, the section 151 officer has advised the following. This proposal has no overall impact on the proposed base budget position, as it is reallocating funding from members' grants to area committees.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I welcome the idea that we need to do more for the area committees. We do need to look at how we can make them effective and more effective. I don't think, though, that this is the correct mechanism. Member grants enable us in our wards to respond to local groups, to help provide groups which might not be big enough to get themselves onto an area committee agenda, but with 50 or 100 pounds are able to put an event on or provide a service. So I think they do deliver an important service that this council provides, and I would really oppose seeing them go. There's also a problem that each group controls different area committees. In Weston, the independents have a majority, and we would basically be able to control all 10 members in that area, and we'd be able to allocate their £3,000 as well. Other area committees are dominated by one group as well, and I think that would be a little counterproductive. I think you could see some members feeling that their ward just isn't getting a look in. They're asked to pay £50 to support a summer fete, and it's gone to the area committee, and they've decided to spend it on something else. So I think it's important that we keep our member grants, but I also think it is important that we start thinking how we can get more power-making decisions and more influence down to the area committees so that their work can continue successfully. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Microphone.
Sorry, apologies. But he is right. The only thing further I would add is that to withdraw the member grant now could lead to, I'm going to call it favouritism to certain groups on certain area committees. That's good timing. But also, and again, comes back to the discussion which we've had already about withdrawing grants, just like that, that there are groups and charities out there that are already approaching us for some money for the coming year, and to suddenly turn and say, no, sorry, on your way, because we're going to put it to an area committee, actually I don't think does the wider residents of Swale good. So I will not be supporting this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you. Mum's on that very point as well. I've already agreed organisations in my own ward that I will fund them in the next year, knowing that this money was coming forward. So just for that very reason, I can't support this.
Councillor Thompson.
I'd have to agree with Councillor Baldock. Yeah, we have 7 parishes, and it's a great way for have bottom up, local effective action. So yeah, I'd not be able to support it. Yeah.
Anyone else wish to speak? I would then like to ask Councillor Tim Gibson. Oh, sorry. Councillor Martin, sorry. Would you like to speak a second?
Just no comment, thank you.
Okay, thanks. So now I'll ask Tim Gibson if he would like to comment as the original proposer of the motion, and if he to reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have no further to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we will proceed to a recorded vote. So, Councillor Baldock?
Against.
Councillor Bonnet?
Against.
Councillor Booth? Councillor Bowen?
Against.
Councillor Braun?
Against.
Councillor Carnell?
Against.
Councillor Chapman?
Against.
Councillor Cheeseman?
Against.
Councillor Roger Clark? Councillor Simon Clark?
Against.
Councillor Gibson?
For.
Charles Gibson, sorry. And Councillor Tim Gibson?
Against.
Councillor Kieran Goulding?
Against.
Councillor Gould?
Against.
Councillor Hall? Oh, sorry, he's not here. Oops. Councillor Harrison?
Against.
And Councillor Hunt?
Against.
Councillor Jackson?
Against.
Councillor Jays?
Against.
Councillor Last?
Against.
Councillor Lehman?
Against.
Councillor MacDonald?
Against.
Councillor Marchington? Councillor Ben Martin?
For.
Use Mike.
I was on mic, but
For.
Councillor Claire Martin?
For.
Councillor Charlie Miller?
Against.
Councillor Leanne Moore? Councillor Pete Neal? Councillor No?
Against.
Councillor Nundy?
Against.
Councillor Chris Palmer?
Against.
Councillor Richard Palmer?
Against.
Councillor Perkin?
For.
Councillor Ashley Shell?
Against.
Councillor Speed? Councillor Paul Stephen?
Against.
Myself against. Councillor Thompson?
Against.
Councillor Tucker?
Against.
Councillor Vowles?
Against.
Councillor Watson?
Against.
Councillor Worcester? Councillor Whiting
Against.
and Councillor Wise.
Against.
Thank you, councillors. Hi, councillors. Right, the results were 4 votes for, 39 against, and no abstentions. So the amendment falls. I think that's the word of the evening I'm going to go home with. Vehemently seems to be very popular. Yeah. Okay. Rightio. So, amendment number 8 was already done. So we're moving on to amendment 9. Amendment 9. And that's, I invite Councillor Bowen to propose your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Similar to what happened earlier this evening, I'd like to propose an amendment to our amendment. Listen carefully, everybody. You might want to take a couple of notes. I wish to propose the following amendments to the 24-25 budget fees and fees and charges. On the income side, introduce planning fees costs for large major 50+ houses or flats of £150 per house or flat. Expected income £7,500. Introduce a minimum fee for major 10 to 49 houses or flats of £2,871.25 plus VAT, or £150 plus VAT per dwelling for applications of 20 or more dwellings. Estimated income again £7,500. This puts a cost to developers rather than residents. Introduce an overnight camper van parking fee of £25 per night. Estimated income in excess of £25,000. This is again puts the cost to visitors rather than our residents. And scrap the publication of Inside Swale, saving £21,000 a year and helping towards our environmental saving paper and trees strategy. Expenditure. Reduce the cost of nighttime parking to £2. Estimated cost £133,000. This will help promote the nighttime economy and again put money in residents' pockets. Retain the free car parks that we currently have at £38,000. Freeze pitch fees for under 16 and mini football. Rounded up £1,000. Well, that's 563, but we're going to use £1,000 for this. And scrap the proposed charges of £3.50 per box of clinical waste after 2 collections. Estimated 16,000. Use the residual grant money of 179,000 with the balance from reserves to fund these proposals. That would mean a cost from reserves of £14,000. This is an amendment that actually is in the interests of our residents. It keeps money in their pockets. At a time of cost of living, what else could be particularly more important to our people? It puts the cost to developers. It puts the cost to the visitors of the borough. And we can make a little bit of money out of it. So I move the amendment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Sorry, bear-
Amendment is
Yeah.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. And in doing so, we want to reverse the £113,000 that was agreed earlier to go in to address the deficit. And I'm looking at 2 pieces of paper. And this would also keep the 66,000 that we've agreed for the Citizens Advice Bureau as well, within this proposal. So that'd be the cost of 66,000, but would be covered by all the other items I've just listed. So to summarise, reduce overnight car parking to £2, 133,000. CAB amendment, 66,000. Pitch fees of 1,000. Free car parks, 38,000. Clinical waste, 16,000. Income from planning fees on the 2 strands, 15,000. Camper vans, 25,000. And save an inside swale of 21,000, which will draw a cost from reducing the 113 from the deficit, which will be £14,000. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. So, as the seconder, Councillor Whiting, you're happy to second and accept the amendments?
I'm happy to second the amendments to the amendment.
Thank you.
Do you accept the amended amendments?
Yeah, do you accept?
Accept them, yeah.
Yes, I accept them, yes.
Right, that's fine.
Yeah, I accept your amended amendments. That'd be a tongue twister at some point, wouldn't it? Vehemently, yes. Okay, so in accordance with procedure rule 3.1.14, oh, it's going to change now, isn't it?
So do you want to invite the second 151 officer to
that's,
speak to it because
yeah.
it's changed?
Yes, as this has now changed, what I was actually going to say on on Lisa's behalf, I think I'd rather her speak so she can actually answer this now. So, you want to speak? Councillor Martin.
Yeah, just before we get there, I'll declare an interest straight away and say I'm going to leave the room for this one, as I will directly save money as a result of the proposal.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Martin. So, Lisa, could you speak on this, please?
So most of my notes still remain as are in the printed amendment. So the income assumption for the pre-planning advice for the large majors is based on the current year's activity at an additional cost of £150 per dwelling, with a minimum of 50 dwellings for the site. The introduction of the fee for the major pre-application advice is a Conservative group estimate based on their assumptions, as is the camper van parking of £25 per night with the estimated income of 25,000. The inside swale saving is the current year's budget position, so that is a saving that would be delivered. So those above proposals will generate additional income of £61,000 if they are delivered as stated. Did you mention 25-26? Okay. Okay. So please ignore that comment. The implications of reducing the proposed fee for car parking is now a cost of £133,000. The estimated loss of income based on the spaces for the free car parks is £38,000. The implications of freezing the fees for the loss on pitch fees is previously calculated as £563, right, rounded up to 1,000. And the implications of scrapping the proposed collection, it will be additional costs of between 15 and 20,000 based on the current proposals. So I haven't done them live maths. So the net position, it will be that the income covered from the proposals above and the grant income of 113,000 from the previous amendment will leave an additional budget gap of £14,000, which is being proposed to be taken from reserves.
Thank you, Lisa. So, we now go on to open debate. Any members want to speak? I don't know who was first there. Councillor Harrison.
Madam Mayor, as a point of order, I don't think we've actually formally had it seconded by Councillor Whiting at this point. No, he accepted the amendment. Okay.
Yeah, I did ask him to second, and then I asked him to second his the amendments.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will second and reserve my right. Thank you.
that's Harrison. Who else?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have raised over the past God knows how many years, so I'm going to continue. The short-sightedness of the administration prior to 2019, whereby they kept the council tax down, didn't increase it at all, and even 1 year cut it, was short-sighted and, in my view, irresponsible. I mention that because a lot of councils are now in a very difficult financial position, and some are going bust, bankrupt, issuing the 114 notice. And very recently, in one of the things that I usually read with a fine-tooth comb, the LGIU Daily News, the leader of Dudley Council said, for years, Dudley has been a relatively low council tax authority. We have to face the reality that not increasing council tax by the maximum that we can has harmed our long-term financial stability. Dudley, by the way, is Conservative controlled. I've been saying that for years, most recently aided and abetted by my colleague sitting...
Councillor Harrison, can you keep this relevant, please?
It is relevant. It's about the amount of money that we have available to spend, Madam Mayor. The second point that I want to raise is this, and unfortunately Councillor Henderson isn't here, give him my best wishes. We have been working on the budget for at least 6 months. I do recall, prior to 2019, over each and every year, the leader of the council saying to people who raise amendments, Councillor Henderson, if only you'd come to me sooner, if only you'd raised these amendments sooner, we could have looked at it. But we can't really do this on the night, can we? And to a man and woman, of course, the Conservative group voted against. And 1 year, Madam Mayor, I said, Councillor Bowles, if Councillor Henderson came to you tomorrow for next year's budget,
point of order, Madam
Mayor.
Mayor.
It was too late.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. This is nothing to do with what's been proposed. We're talking about previous administrations. We're talking about council tax. Not one single word of that is in this amendment. Stick to the amendment, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I did ask you, Councillor Harrison. I think gone off a little bit.
Sorry, having said that, Madam Mayor, if I could just quickly continue, there is one area in that amended amendment that I personally have been raising for a number of years, and I hope that I never give in. We will get there in the end, and I hope that the parking working group, which I'm not on, I'm talking Shinglebank, I hope that they will continue to give it some thought going forward, because we do have to do something about that. I hope people understand what I'm saying. I can't go away for a week's holiday and park up free of charge and leave me rubbish and the rest of it. And as I say, I do think that this needs to be taken forward by the appropriate service committee, and there is a cross-party that sits on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. So if we try and keep on the subjects, and we're doing all right. So we're Councillor Worcester.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have 2 points to make on this amendment. The first is that I'm surprised to see the retaining of the free car parks on here, because as far as I was aware, this was being discussed at the March meeting with regards to the relevant committee. So maybe that's something that is better discussed where it's actually relevant, where that decision can actually be made rather than here. And it's really sad to see that in this amendment we've got scrap publication of Inside Swale, which obviously really sad to see members of this chamber purposely trying to exclude those residents that have internet poverty and do not have access to things that we may take for granted, which shows an amazing lack of forethought for those residents that this council works on behalf of, that apparently will magically know the contact details of their ward residents, that will magically know the details of very important waste updates and environmental updates from every element of this council goes into that publication. And I'm always receiving, as a ward councillor, messages of support for Inside Swale. They wish they could have it more often. I do understand that, for instance, there is a cost to it, but as I've put a million times, maybe that's an exaggeration, a large number of times to this council, there are two costs. There are a financial cost and there is a social cost. And I would like to see the opposition actually looking at the social costs before they put something down which excludes a large amount of our population in one swipe. Thank you.
Councillor Perkin.
Funnily enough, I was going to say exactly what Dolly said, so thanks very much.
Councillor Thompson.
It's just a just a point on motorhome fees. You wouldn't be able to get £25 a night, as having done it. It's only between 10 and 14 for a pitch with all the facilities, so that needs amending. And as for cutting costs for overnight parking, we don't want to encourage people to drive. We want to encourage people to share. A pint of beer is £4.58. I think £3 is not hard. So.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I chaired the Sheppey Area Committee meeting last night at Sheppey Rugby Club. For the record, the heating wasn't on and we wore jumpers. As per the comments on the various Facebook groups and in today's Times and Guardian on page 8, the residents of Sheppey are not happy about the proposed parking charges being implemented at the Little Oyster car park in Minster, Queenborough Library and Park Road, both in Queenborough, and finding the Ship on Shore car park in Sheerness. Last night's meeting was attended by 51 residents and members of the public. Amongst the various speakers in the public were Marilyn Ward. She works at the Little Oyster Cafe. She meets various residents who meet daily and weekly there, and it has become a community hub, if you like. Not only can the residents not afford the proposed parking charges, it will also affect the current footfall at the cafe. Marilyn has backed up this statement with petitions signed by approximately 500 residents who use the cafe on a regular basis. In addition, 2 residents mentioned that they have used the cafe when there's been bereavement sessions available. They have found this vital resource for their mental health. Chris Goymer, the commandeer from the Isle of Sheppey Sailing Club, spoke about the Ship on Shore car park and the consequence it will have on their members and visitors who come to the Sailing Club throughout the year. It goes with the activity. They do not stay for 1 or 2 hours, but most of the day sailing is generally for a longer period, going to sea, etc. In summary, it will have a dramatic effect on their footfall. There is no other car park near their headquarters and launch ramp. He ended saying that the Round the Island yacht race, which is extremely popular, could be in doubt as visitors not only park there, but leave their trailers in the car park. Simon Fowle from Bosun's Tea Room in Queenborough commented how the Park Road car park...
Point of order, Madam Mayor. This is not for this committee. This is for another committee. This is not relevant tonight.
By the proposed changes, can I carry on like he did, Madam Mayor?
Yeah, I mean, this will be going to another committee.
More visitors to Queenborough. I think it's important the 51 residents that attended the only...
No,
so are you
yeah.
going to sit down?
Sitting men, yeah, okay. All right, carry on, sorry.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. He said how we need to attract more visitors to Queenborough and the island in general to increase revenue in the town. The charges will dramatically impact this and we're still trying to recover from the impact from COVID. Finally, Ray Butcher from Castle Connections commented how residents and visitors using the community centre will be affected by the charges proposed for the Queenborough Library car park. The users are generally on low income and will affect their staff. As much as 25% of their wages wiped out by the charges. The centre is vital to residents not only in Queenborough but the island. They provide cheap meals, host a dementia cafe, bereavement cafe and numerous community groups and clubs use the centre on a weekly basis, all run by volunteers that will lose out. Madam Mayor, I could go on, but I'm sure you and the members get the vibe amongst the residents of the island for the 45 minutes that they addressed the committee yesterday. Each speaker followed by clapping and loud cheers of support from the numerous residents, similar to the other side of the chamber tonight. I'm sure you all know me by now. I'm not the biggest fan of politics. I do support the budget. However, without the amendment suggested by the Conservatives, the only party with an amendment that wants to scrap the proposed charges and leave the car parks as they are free of charge to use, I cannot support the budget as it is. Not only am I supporting my residents at Sheppey Central, but as chair of the Sheppey Area Committee, I must support the views of the 51 residents that attended last night and the whole island. If this amendment is not agreed, I will forward this letter to Councillor Richard Palmer as chair of the Community Committee on behalf of the Islands residents. I hope the committee sees sense and does not implement the suggested changes to the car parks mentioned at their next meeting on the 6th of March. You may want to change the venue because I don't think they're fit in the public gallery. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor. Anyone else wanting to speak? Councillor Hunt.
Yeah, I'll just mention the Inside Swale magazine because it's a bit funny. We've heard about previous administrations of this council, but I'd sort of mention the previous opposition of this council for many years, with Labour trying to scrap our Inside Swale magazine. I mean, every year it came up to budget, and we should get rid of that. It's a waste of money. And now it is being looked at in this day and age when most people are on the internet. We had COVID when most people were on the internet and using VoIP. And, well, so for many years, Labour tried to scrap it. We're now proposing that it is scrapped. It is the time for it. And it's just funny how things change, isn't it?
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. And apologies to Councillor Speed, because you were next, actually. And then Dundee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we need to consider whether the extra income from high nighttime parking charges outweighs the damage being done to the economy in Swale. Since the introduction of these charges, many small businesses have reported a significant decrease in footfall and revenue. Residents are already suffering from the cost of living crisis. Having to pay these extra parking charges on top of rising prices makes going out much less affordable. I think the council needs to help revitalise the flagging nighttime economy, not stifle it. Venues like the Arden Theatre and swimming pool in Faversham are staffed by volunteers who must now dip into their own pockets to keep these services running. And similar issues are being reported in Sheppey and Sittingbourne. We would have liked to scrap these charges altogether, but that wasn't affordable. So I think reducing them is a reasonable compromise. Freezing pitch fees at a cost of, well, we calculated at 563, we put it in at 1,000 to round it up. I mean, that is a no-brainer to encourage active lifestyles for such a small amount of money. And I'd like to make the point that no other amendments this evening have come up with ideas for increasing revenue. And we've done it by increasing revenue from developers and tourists and not from residents. This proposal also restores the CAB grant as previously agreed. It scraps the idea that we should charge for clinical waste collections, which acts against those with medical conditions who need to get rid of their needles. And it requires a very small 14k from reserves to enable us to do all these things. So I would encourage members to support this amendment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Speed. Councillor Lundy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank Councillor Tucker for representing the views of the 51 residents that were at the Swale at the Sheppey Area Committee meeting last night. It was an emotive. It was an emotive meeting, and while I am also very much opposed to the parking charges, I thought that there are times to stand up and speak and there are times to shut up and listen to the residents that are in the room, and that's what I chose to do last night. However, this isn't the place to discuss that. That can go to the Community Committee and the decision can be made there. This is about the budget, not about allocating which car parks will have the charges. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lundy. Anybody else? Councillor Jays, please.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, Madam Mayor. Can I confirm that the Community Committee will be agreeing whether or not the free car parks are charged and set the tariff hours and amount, and that the fees and charges are just an upper limit, and that the Community Committee will decide whether the nighttime charge is changed to £3 or whatever amount they change to?
Okay. Councillor Whiting, a seconder. Would you like to speak now, please?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Much has been said. We do feel that this side of the chamber that compromise is a good thing. and we recognise that in the financial position that the council finds itself, removing the nighttime charges, which we do believe are seriously affecting not just the business economy of our town centres, but also the voluntary economy, much as, for example, introducing charges in the Leas at Minster would affect those volunteers that come far and wide to clean our beaches. We heard last night at the area committee they take away some 250 kilograms of rubbish from the beach every month. And they are going to be asked to pay £5.40 for the privilege of doing that. And we don't believe that that is a good way to encourage that voluntary effort. I do believe that introducing a tax on the sick by asking them to have their sharps boxes removed when it's currently free is immoral and the wrong thing to do. And I also believe that discouraging young people from taking part in sport by inflation busting rises to the cost of their pitch fees for such a small amount of money, again, is immoral and against various policies of this council in respect of health and wellbeing and fitness and sport. And we can do a lot of this by charging the developers more. Last year, the administration proposed getting rid of the CAB grant. We rescued it with an amendment that charged the developers more for their wheelie bins. This year, we can charge the developers more and not the residents more to make life better for our residents and for others. The charges, I've heard mention of the charges for the camper vans. There is an overwhelming majority on Sheppey that would dearly like to see the camper vans removed from the shingle bank in Minster, for example, and introducing a charge of £25 a night should help to control that. And we've based our income projection at 25k on only 3 camper vans per night. That's 3 stays per night in a holiday area, and we think that's an underestimate of what we would make by charging £25 a night for camper vans to park safely and legitimately in the borough. So all in all, for the sake of taking £16,000 more out of reserves, sorry, £14,000 more out of reserves, we can assist our residents, assist our businesses, and I think assist our visitors, and certainly assist our voluntary sector, and assist those who rely on the Sharps Box collections for their health and well-being. And I think £14,000 out of reserves is a very small price to pay for balancing that particular sum.
3 minutes.
I beg to move. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Whiting. So, Councillor Gibson, would you like... Oh. Councillor Gibson, would you like to come back as the proposer of the original motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I would indeed. You all know what I'm going to say. Oh, you don't? Well, nor do I know when somebody says this is an estimated income. Estimated. How can that be fiscally sound? And then again, Conservative Group, estimated income assumption. Rather bizarre to me, if that's how the budgeting works. Councillor Whiting, you said compromise is a good thing. You know it is, because you compromised this council when you made that decision to vote for that to go forward, and I know it wasn't, it was just something you pushed forward, it wasn't your decision. So compromise is, and it is a big thing. Thank you very much for that. Publication of Inside Swirl, and we've heard comments about Labour's position, probably before my time, but having said that, during the time that we used to get that thing, it was full of just a complete and utter administration trumpet. Now it's been refreshed, it's been changed, it's relevant, and it is absolutely welcomed. And I echo the sounds of Councillor Worcester saying there are massive amounts of people still in internet poverty, and still those that are frightened of the internet, don't want to do it. So, in fact, if you were to contact our communications officer, you'll find that I was on his back about, I've had 5 residents local to me that haven't received it, and yet others have. Why haven't they received it? And when they get it, they're absolutely thrilled to have it. So that's the feedback from that. I just don't see any way possible in supporting any of this it just, for me, it's jam tomorrow. It might be, we could get this. Camper vans, we've already heard from Councillor Thompson that, you know, camper vans, £25 a night. Good heavens, I'd want a week at Butlins for that. It's absolutely amazing. So I'm afraid I won't be supporting this. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Councillor James, yeah?
Thank you. I don't feel like I can vote until I have an answer to my question. I don't know who can answer it, but I don't feel like I can vote without that answer.
Can you remind us of your question, Councillor James?
I'm very glad I typed it up. Can I get confirmed that...
Asking Lisa, yeah.
Can I get confirmed that the Community Committee will be agreeing whether or not the free car parks are charged and set the tariff and hours and amount, and that the prices quoted in fees and charges are the upper limit, and the Community Committee will decide the new price of the nighttime charges?
Yes, so the Community Committee, the fees and charges set the general charges that will be charged for the hourly rates, and the off-peak figure that is quoted in here, which is the evening parking, is subject to the final decision on the parking policy. So the policy should set the parameters around which the fees and charges will be applied.
Can I come back?
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yes, I will let you.
I don't think it...
And sorry, they will be making the decision on the free car parks where there will be no charges. That is a specific recommendation in the report, as I understand. Because they make a decision on the chargeable and non-chargeable car parks. That's part of the policy
pick
decision.
the hours and amounts.
So the hours and the amounts are...
Is that something that this council can delegate to said committee?
So the hours... Sorry, Elliot, can I just take some advice?
Okay, councillors, our Chief Exec is going to actually answer this question.
Councillor Jays. So this meeting tonight is agreeing a fee and charge, which, subject to agreement that the said car parks are chargeable, will be charged. So if they say it's chargeable, they're the charges that will be charged. The policy has an overall lays out overall what the times of charges are. That policy is going to be discussed and agreed at Communities Committee. So if the policy, if there is an amendment to the proposal in the policy, then that will be what it is. The charges, if it is agreed to charge, this is what the charges will be, because that's what members are agreeing tonight. But the policy of how often, what the timings for the charges are, is what's agreed on at Communities Committee, and the car parks that are included in that, and there will be a specific recommendation on the 3 car parks that have been discussed today. That will be a specific recommendation which will either be passed, be amended, or fall. But the hourly rate that is in this document, the fees and charges, that is subject to this amendment, will be the charge in the event that members agree to charge, to charge for those car parks.
Madam Mayor, can
I come back, Madam Mayor?
Very briefly, because...
Thank you. So I don't think the option is to, it's either a yes or no, whether it's approved or against the committee. I don't think we're saying it can't be, the hours can't be amended and the fees can't be amended. So the decision for the Community Committee will be charge yes, charge no. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, to confirm that's not the case because that's not what I said. The policy will set the hours. So the policy will say in car parks, we will charge between car parks X, Y and Z, we will charge between this time and this time. That is a policy. The only bit that members are talking about tonight is in the event that it is agreed that there is charging, that what the charge will be. That is the bit that's tonight. The policy around whether we charge and for how long we charge is a policy decision that will go to Communities Committee.
Madam Mayor, can I
Very
come back
briefly,
with a very
Councillor
brief
Whiting.
question on that? Because I'm a bit confused. We were told very early on in the process when we went to committees that the fees and charges and the budget were one conversation because they set the amount of money we would raise and the amount of money we would spend, which is what we're doing tonight. What the Chief Exec seems to be saying is that we will defer to the committee a decision to change that. Because if they decide not to charge, then that affects our budget. And they can't affect our budget. What they should have done is made their policy and brought it to P&R and brought it to the budget meeting. And it's going around the wrong... If they want to change the policy for next year's budget, I would see that as a laudable thing to do. But to suggest that they can amend our budget at a committee meeting, I think, and I'll take some advice from... That's the clarification I would seek. Thank you.
So just to clarify, the budget, so you will see in the budget that there are charges. We currently don't have a policy to charge for those 3 car parks. So the budget is based on the car parks that we've got, with a proposal that in the event, and you're correct, it would have been easier to be able to do it the other way around, agree the policy and agree the fees and charges. However, it was very important to the cross-party working group that they got the public consultation, had enough time, so that's what happened, and the cross-party working group agreed to that and agreed that it was important that if members did agree the policy, that there wasn't a having to come back to full council for the fee and charge. So what has happened is the fee and charge has been put in for in the event that the policy says that that's what they're going to do. If the policy doesn't say that, you're right, there will be a gap in the budget. But as we've advised members, that gap will be a gap for the parking budget as a whole, and we will then take a paper to Policy and Resources to understand how we're going to fill that budget gap. So you're right, in the event that members don't choose to support the parking charges for parking in those 3 car parks, that will lead to a budget gap which we will need to fill. However, if we didn't put the charges in and members agreed to agree the charges at the Communities Committee, then what would have happened is we wouldn't have any charges, we would have to come back. So either way, we've got to come back, but it was agreed by members that we would do it this way round, and that's what's been agreed.
But if I can very quickly, I come back on
Sorry,
that.
Councillor
But
Whiting.
it strikes me that this is as speculative
No,
as
Councillor
we've been
Whiting,
accused of
we've
being
had the answer.
with the
We've had
parking
the
for
answer.
motorhomes.
Okay, so we're now going to go to a recorded vote on this amendment. So, Councillor Baldock.
Against.
Councillor Bonnet.
Against.
Councillor Booth.
For.
Councillor Bowen. Councillor Braun.
Against.
Councillor Carnell.
Against.
Councillor Chapman.
Against.
Councillor Cheeseman.
Against.
Councillor Roger Clark. Councillor Simon Clark.
Against.
Councillor Charles Gibson.
Abstain.
Councillor Tim Gibson.
Against.
Councillor Goulding.
Against.
Councillor Gould.
Against.
Councillor Harrison. Councillor Hunt.
For.
Councillor Jackson.
Against.
Councillor Jays.
Abstain.
Councillor Last. Councillor Lehman.
Against.
Councillor MacDonald.
Abstain.
Councillor Marchington. Councillor Ben Martin.
Taking himself out of this.
Oh, he had to take himself out, didn't he? Councillor Claire Martin.
Abstain.
Councillor Miller.
Against.
Councillor Moore. Councillor Neal. Councillor No. Councillor Nundy.
Abstain.
Councillor Chris Palmer.
Against.
Councillor Richard Palmer.
Against.
Sorry. Councillor Hannah Perkin. Ashley Shirl.
Against.
Councillor Speed. Councillor Paul Stephen.
Against.
Councillor Sarah Stephen Me. Against. And Councillor Thompson. Councillor Tucker.
Vehemently for.
Councillor Vales.
Against.
Councillor Watson.
Against.
Councillor Worcester. Councillor Whiting.
For.
And Councillor Wise. Thank you, councillors. Okay, councillors, for the amendment was 11, against 25, abstained 6, so the amendment has fallen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a budget by the Coalition and is your budget, your fees and charges. We acknowledge the economic challenges faced by many of our residents, especially in the wake of recent global events. Families are already grappling with rising costs of living, and imposing above inflation increases would only add to their financial burdens. This approach risks disproportionately impacting those who are already struggling to make ends meet, widening the socio-economic divide within our communities. So people would hope to see some support from its council. And how is this budget supporting residents? Council tax up £30 per Band D property since 2019 and increases every year. It has been said in this chamber this evening and numerous times that if the previous administration had put up council tax every year, we wouldn't be in this situation. Let me be clear. I will never apologise for decisions that keep pounds in people's pockets when increases were not deemed essential at the time and we had increasing reserves. Is this what we can expect from this council and from a Labour-led council or government? Tax people because we can? Car parking up. Car parking up. Car parking up
Councillors,
28.6% since 2019 and now looking to charge potentially where it's been free. Charges for clinical waste collection, a condition people didn't ask for but have to live with. But this administration looks to charge you for your health conditions once you have 2 collections or more. And then, at the worst time when people pass away, you are charging at least another 8% to last year's costs for burials and cremations. As they say, 2 things in life are assured, death and taxes. But this administration wants you to charge even more when you die. No doubt there will be the yes, but it's only X pence increase, but X pence makes a difference to people having to regularly fund parking fees. X pounds makes a difference to people to our council taxpayers, and X pence makes a difference to parents taking their kids to events that use our pitches. X pence soon adds up. The CPIH in January is 4.2%. This budget, where increases in fees and charges are all above inflation. We must also consider the potential negative impact and effects on local businesses. Higher costs to residents will translate to the local economy and business. Now, while I acknowledge the need for adequate funding to maintain and improve essential services, I urge the Council to explore alternative avenues for revenue generation. I note of all the amendments proposed this year, only one had suggestions that could generate additional income, and that was from my group, which looked to put costs back to developers and those who visit the borough, not on our residents. Is the administration so devoid of ideas that they rely on others to create income streams, just like last year? This is your budget, a budget that uses residents as a cash cow. It will probably pass, but you look at you in your residents' eyes and justify the increases to them and say it's to keep the council operating and address the deficit. Thankfully, we have good reserves in place set by the previous administration. Otherwise, what state would you be in now? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Can someone extend standing orders? Great. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. I invite Councillor Perkin to speak. I had it written there.
Thanks. I don't really know how to follow the audacity of the Conservative group, to be perfectly honest. So, yes, it is an administration budget. We have, as a group, always said we will support the administration where we think that they're making good decisions, and we will challenge the administration where we think that they could improve. We are, as a group, are incredibly sad that the pools have not received the additional funding that we have looked towards. But there is a lot of work has gone into making this budget what it is. So there's commendable aspects of it. Personally, I think that as an organisation, we should be following our colleagues across local government and declaring a financial emergency for local authorities that is supported by the Local Government Association, the Local Government Information Unit. Local government is being starved, and it is the taxpayer that are paying for that gap. It is a political choice from a Conservative government that has taken money away from residents and from local government year upon year upon year. They've supported Brexit. They have supported paying billions of pounds in PPE that was never used. They have supported the Rwanda scheme, which continues to cost taxpayers money. What this has got to do with Swale is the fact that it is us that are paying for national decisions that are made by a government who is out of touch and out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Perkin. I'm going to open the debate up to members if anybody wants to discuss on the substantive. Councillor Shield.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is a budget that is extremely tight. It's a budget that's taken this coalition an awful long time to get through. It's this coalition that are standing in front of residents saying to them, we're ever so sorry you're going to food banks because the Conservative government have cut your money. We're really sorry that you can't get an NHS doctor's appointment because their Conservative government are not funding it correctly. This government has given us nothing. This council is providing everything it can on the pittance that is coming from central government.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I, Councillor Whiting now?
I don't want to add too much more, other than to say I think this council in the last few years has had more money from government than many other councils in Kent, including the £20 million for the Revival Fund and all the COVID grants that came through. There have been a whole range of support from central government for this council in the multi-million pounds. So I just dispute the fact that the government is giving less to this council than it has before. I think it's given more in the last couple of years than ever before, and more than to many other councils. And the last thing I just mention, I forgot to mention during my thing earlier, Madam Mayor, was that I did hand in to the Chief Executive earlier 3 petitions numbering some 800 signatures with regard to the abolition of the free parking on Sheppey, and I'm told by the Chief Exec that will get presented to the committee in due course. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whiting. So, Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will be extremely brief because I think we've all just about had enough tonight. Madam Mayor, for many years local councils have been the foundation and cornerstone of democracy, and for too long the government has been starving councils of finance, not giving us the resources to continue to build strong communities, and we're left to fight for the scraps being dropped from the top table. Madam Mayor, our residents expect us to provide services that impact on their daily lives, many not realising that the money is disappearing. And now KCC, including the Tory KCC councillors, we have the nerve to sit among us tonight, to remove £297,000 worth of funding from Swale, from decimating youth services, closing Bridge and Johnson houses, hitting the most vulnerable. Madam Mayor, they will say our reserves are reduced. We have to make cuts. Well, where are we supposed to find these funds? We haven't got a money tree in the middle of Swale car park. Funds our residents will benefit from. More funding from KCC is not forthcoming, but more pressure will be put on Swale's shoulders. They're pulling the rug from under our feet and will throw it back at us. They've taken the rug and now they want the floorboards as well.
Yeah, right.
Madam Mayor, we are trying to stop the cracks, support our residents, but until borough finances are looked at seriously, which is what we do, and as has been pointed out, we'll be probably looking at the next year's budget tomorrow, we will continue to struggle. The decisions we made here tonight will impact all of us. These decisions are not easy ones to make, and if we could, we would help our residents in the most difficult fiscal times. We must cut our cloth accordingly. But KCC need to be fair. They need to play ball and stop playing the victim and stop playing the fool. KCC had the family silver to sell. We don't. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Harrison.
Yes, Madam Mayor, successive governments all round have avoided looking properly at local government financing for many, many years. It's a bit difficult, we'll leave it. It's a bit like the business rates. Well, we have had money from government, extra money, one-off money, which we have had to bid for. It's the old beauty contest, along with other people all over the country. Nothing's just been handed over. And yet, if you look at COVID, the organisations which government were relying on quite heavily wasn't the upper tier authorities, it was the local borough and district councils who were in there with the local community groups who were making a difference. We need a proper look at local government financing, but we need it for the long term, not just well this you'll get that. Well, I suppose if you plead enough, I might give you a few more, shouldn't be there. It should be done properly. I do, and going back to my earlier comment, I can recall some years ago when they were looking at local government financing, a certain council, which we've talked about tonight, had been not taxing to the full extent that they could. And so in the new formula, they really, really dipped out. It makes a difference. Short-term political decisions have a long-term consequence on our residents. I will admit, I heard this last night, was it? Tuesday, at the Sheppey Area Committee, we received 174,000 one-off money from the Police and Crime Commissioner for Safer Streets project. Wasn't that good? Who's up for election in May this year? Oh yes, the Police and Crime Commissioner.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Jays, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Are the fees and charges correct in this document? Are parking charges for half hour currently 60p or 65p? But it says 60p on page 3 and page 4 of Appendix X, and therefore the percentages are wrong and doesn't paint us in a nice light, saying we're raising it by 16%. Also, the annual bin emptying charges on page 11 in the same appendix, I don't think the costs there actually reflect how much it'll cost in the new contract. I don't want to say how much that is in case it's commercially sensitive, but that doesn't reflect the cost, and I think we could be raising more money there.
Thank you, Councillor Jays. Councillor Bonnet.
Shall I wait until the officers come back on that, or shall I give them time? I carry on. Okay, thank you very much. So I wanted to respond to the comments that we had an awful lot of money given to us during COVID, and that was the case, but it wasn't our money. We were the agent for that money, and a vast majority of that money was to be distributed to residents and to businesses to try and get them through COVID. That has a significant impact on our budget, long-term and short-term. We're clearing up the costs of COVID, the cost of the impact on our businesses, many have failed, and the cost to our residents. And let's not forget the trashing of the economy. Those interest costs have cost us dear. They have cost us dear across the council. It has cost us dear from all our suppliers. It has cost our residents dear. We face a really difficult budget. It's probably one of the most difficult budgets I've sat on. We have opened the closet, we've dusted it down, we've had a look. I'm sure going forward there's more we can do. There's things that we've identified that we've talked about in the background, and I'll freely say things around camper vans on seafronts. I've raised that several times and I know other members have, and we need to continue that process. But the budget we face is a direct result of government and government policy. So residents, I'm afraid, we have done our very best to try and put together a budget that is fair and reasonable, that has been checked and double-checked. So I've moved that we go to the vote on this.
Thank you, Councillor Bonnet. Councillor Baldock, as you reserved your right, would you like to speak now?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And it has been good to have this debate and have the input from all sides. And at the end of it, Swale still has the second lowest council tax in Kent. It has been another tough budget in a climate of cuts in government funding, still high inflation, and of course last-minute toxic recommendations acted on by Kent County Council. It is chronic, but we struggled to find savings wherever possible and still ended up with a council tax increase, the entire amount of which was swallowed up by the Councillor Whiting recommendation. It is a tribute to our officers and members today that we have still managed to minimise the impact on our residents at such a tough time. There may well have been more that we could have done for the residents of Swale, but that recommendation of £297,000 being taken from Swale and given to KCC has made the lives of our residents just that bit more grim. And the blame for that lies squarely on the crocodile tears of the Tory group opposite. I still have to second this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. So, Councillor Gibson, as a proposer of the original motion, would you like to sum up, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It has been quite a robust debate, and there's been challenges thrown down which I find absolutely incredible. As Councillor Baldock just said, £297,000 across just the residents of Swale, not spread around the county, the residents of Swale. And so we hear the story of, oh, we're taking money out of our people's pockets now, our residents. Well, if that's not doing that, I don't know what on earth is. I've had particularly health issues with the chest issues and so on, but tonight my ribs are absolutely in pieces, almost from withholding the laughter at some of the comments that have come from the other side. So, the cost of living crisis. It's nothing that we've done. We heard Councillor Bonney talking about the Truss crash. And now, as I said earlier, we are officially in Rishi session. So there's more difficulties for our residents. And just to be clear, whilst it might fit a Conservative narrative to estimate and guesstimate and then suggest that everything's rosy in the garden, I'm afraid, as a Yorkshireman, I don't do that. I bought a lottery ticket tonight. Will I win? I don't know. I could do. And that's exactly the position that we're coming from. I think it's absolutely credit to our members of the coalition, to our officers, in the way in which we've managed to get this budget to a sensible position so that we're not like many of those other authorities who are staring down the barrel, sadly, down the barrel of 114 notices and bankruptcy. To be honest, I'm almost getting fed up with the trips up to London, with the begging bowl on behalf of Swale, a special interest group, for things like, as Liz Truss herself said, I've contacted the Treasury and I've actually said to the Chancellor, councils are going to go bust over this drainage board levies. Great. What did she do just not too many months before? So we're still yet to hear the outcome of that. And temporary accommodation and homelessness. And once again, I was up there in the big city, and you know full well what we're going to get out of it is likely to be a net nothing but fresh air and wind. That doesn't help our residents. That doesn't support them. What does is fair funding for this authority and all authorities, and it's something we don't have and we desperately need. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. So we'll move straight into a recorded vote.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, do I not get answers to my questions?
There were comments. Huh? Yep, I'll ask Lisa to answer for you.
The half-hour parking fee is currently 65p in all main car parks, and it's 60p in MSCP because the machines wouldn't take 5p's. So we will update that schedule to the increase to show the difference. from that currently is. Oh, I didn't hear the bin question. Sorry, I was.
So the price quoted in our fees and charges doesn't reflect how much it's going to cost under the new contract to empty the bins, by at least £50. So are we subsidising this, or does that need to be amended?
I'm going to take that one away.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. So move on to the vote. So, Councillor Mike Baldock.
For.
Councillor Monique Bonnet.
Oh, sorry, 4.
Councillor Andy Booth.
Against.
Councillor Lloyd Bowen.
Against.
Councillor Hayden Braun.
For.
Councillor Derek Carnell.
For.
Councillor Lloyd Chapman.
For.
Councillor Shelley Cheeseman.
For.
Councillor Roger Clark. Councillor Simon Clark.
For.
Councillor Charles Gibson.
Abstain.
Councillor Tim Gibson.
For.
Councillor Kieran Goulding.
For.
Councillor Alistair Gould.
For.
Councillor Angela Harrison. Councillor James Hunt. Councillor Carol Jackson.
For.
Councillor Elliot Jays.
For.
Councillor Mark Last. Councillor Rich Lehman.
For.
Councillor Peter MacDonald.
For.
Councillor Peter Marchington. Councillor Ben Martin.
Abstain.
Councillor Claire Martin.
Abstain.
Councillor Charlie Miller.
For.
Councillor Leanne Moore. Councillor Pete Neal. Councillor Tara No.
Against.
Councillor Tom Nundy.
For.
Councillor Chris Palmer.
For.
Councillor Richard Palmer.
For.
Councillor Hannah Perkin.
Abstain.
Councillor Ashley Shell.
For.
Councillor Julian Speed. Councillor Paul Stephen.
For.
Myself, 4. Councillor Terry Thompson. Councillor Mark Tucker.
Against.
Councillor Angie Vars.
For.
Councillor Karen Watson.
For.
Councillor Dolly Worcester. Councillor Mike Whiting. And Councillor Ashley Wise. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, the results are 28 for, 11 against, 4 abstained, so the motion's carried. The budget has been approved.
We've still got,
How long have we
got 2 items in 15 minutes if we can get it in.
Yeah. So we're moving swiftly on to item 14. This is a Treasury Management Strategy, and I invite the leader to introduce the report and propose the recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Treasury management, of course, is the management of the council's cash flows, borrowing and investments and associated risks. And this paper before you this evening invites you to approve the Treasury Management Strategy 24-25 and the Prudential and Treasury Management Indicators. I'll say no more, members. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Can I invite Councillor Mike Baldock to second the recommendation?
I'll second and reserve my right. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Baldock. Councillor Bowen, would you like to speak on this?
Very briefly, Madam, I'm happy with this report, but I do urge that the P&R Committee and this Council keep this under review. With Council finances as they are, I would urge caution on any future loans and the potential impact that could have on this Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Councillor Perkin. Oh.
I'll sub for Councillor Perkin, no comment.
Thank you. So,
Just move on.
Just move on. Any members wish to speak on this? Councillor Harrison.
No, it wasn't that many moons ago. I made the comment at audit and probably made the same comment at P&R, but and I know it's officers' recommendations, but the officer recommendation way back when that we invest in the property land fund, CL something or other, CLA, which was done under the previous administration, was a good call because you could have knocked it on the head and we'd never have seen it again. So it turns out to be a really good investment fund, and I'm glad that you saw fit to do that. I think it's good. So I've just, you know me, credit where it's due. I'll be bashing you enough as it is. So, but no, it was a good call. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Anybody else? So,
Councillor Baldock reserves his right.
oh yes, Councillor Baldock. Would you like to speak?
Oh, yeah, a good debate, lots of knowledgeable input, and I'm happy to go to the vote now.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. Mike, the recommendation's agreed. It's getting to the end of a long evening now, so. Item 15, recommendations for approval. Members asked to note the recommendations from the Policy and Resources Committee held on the 29th of November. Are you all agreed?
Noted.
Agreed. Thank you, councillors. So I will close the meeting at about 22 minutes past. So,
exactly.
That's all right.